So, good. Monica raised the hand. Okay, before I get started, Monica.
No, I'm just checking it out.
Okay,
I
excellent.
didn't know what that was.
Okay, super, perfect. Okay, good evening, everybody, to our very, very special call. We are still after the extravaganza, and everybody is still hyped up. And this is actually speaks for the extravaganza because it was such a special event. And I'm really excited that I could win Lisa for tonight's training. Her passion is nutrition, everything what comes around nutrition. Her background is an attorney. So she wants to know the detail and the nitty gritty, and she applies it. And you will just see in a second her fantastic result, improving all the time. So she actually started to document a little bit a summary of the nutrition training one of our top scientists, Dr. David Heber, gave us in at the extravaganza. And yeah, without any further ado, please give it up for our international active full team member, Lisa Jadim. Woo! Hey, make some noise! Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Bia. Yeah, like Bia said, I'm really passionate about nutrition. I like all the finer details and learning all the nitty gritty. And Dr. David Heber didn't disappoint at the extravaganza. He shared some really awesome information with us. There's a lot of information on the slides. I don't want you guys to necessarily take everything in word by word. I'm sure if Bia wants or would want to, she can make the presentation available if you want to have a look at it later on and look at the finer nitty gritty. But there's some really cool concepts that he shared with us, and I think you guys will benefit a lot from it, those of you who weren't there, learning about certain things that actually affect our clients. And if we understand how those things work, we can know how to better help them when they're going through specific challenges or issues in their nutrition journey. Can we have the first slide here? Okay, so I thought this was really brilliant. I don't know how many nutrition companies or other businesses or other doctors can do what this guy does. He doesn't just tell you what to do, he walks the talk. And both 2 out of the 3 days that he did training for us, he went down onto the ground in his suit and was doing push-ups and into a side plank. I know of people half his age that can't even do a full body push-up, let alone a side plank. And this is a guy who's in his 70s. So he really is the real deal. So I thought that's a nice way to start the presentation for this. Okay, so just so that you guys are clear as well, that this isn't just your general GP that you have hanging around at the local medical practice. I'm not going to run through all of his credentials. The slide there on the left should give you a pretty good idea of how well educated he is and how well schooled he is and versed he is in the different topics that he focuses on. He also serves as chairman of the Herbalife Nutrition Institute. And the Herbalife Nutrition Institute is an online resource that promotes excellence in the field of nutrition. And he also serves on the Nutrition Advisory Board. And his main research interests are obesity treatment as well as nutrition for cancer prevention and treatment. And he's been involved in these fields for more than 40 years, which is really exceptional, the kind of research that he does. And what I love about the people that Herbalife brings on board is that these guys in their respective fields use that knowledge to guide Herbalife and to tell them, listen, these are the types of ingredients that we've done studies with that we know people respond well to if you're looking for weight maintenance or for this or for that. So Herbalife follows the guidance that these guys give, and that's what they use to formulate the product. So we don't have to guess whether something will work or not. They have the experience and the expertise. Next slide, please, Bia. Okay, so one of the things that he focused on, and this I found really fascinating, is where he spoke of the body rhythms, that just as you have the earth that rotates on its axis to every 24 hours, in other words, there are a certain number of hours during the day where we have daylight. That's when that part of earth where we are is facing the sun. And then now, like here in South Africa, where it's evening, and he gives a really good example, where Marge is right now in sunshine, it's daytime. So she's faced their side of the planet is facing the sun. Our side is facing the moon. It's dark. So we have evening here. But just as we have that 24-hour clock that regulates how we live, our bodies work on exactly the same type of clock. So his whole focus on 24-hour nutrition is geared towards helping us understand how we can maintain our metabolism and manage our weight by scheduling things like eating, exercise, and sleep into a 24-hour routine, because that's how your body functions optimally. So what he explained is that when it becomes daytime, the light that you have in your room, or when you get up and you open up your curtains, that light, when it hits your eye, it actually sends a signal from the eye to a biological clock in your brain that releases a substance that tells your brain, hello, it's time for this body to wake up. And that then signals like more than 100 other clocks in your body and those organs that they need to start doing their work, because it's now time to wake up. They need to regulate temperature, hormones, your immune system, digestion, as well as reproduction. And these internal signals include things like hormones. It helps to regulate blood pressure, nutrients, and body temperature. And then at night, when we need to go to sleep, there's certain hormone levels that drop, which I'll discuss with you guys in a second. And the hormones that kept you awake, those hormones that kept you awake start dropping, and the ones that help you sleep start increasing. But it's all based around how your body responds to light and how that light signals your brain and how the brain signals the rest of the organs to do what they're supposed to do. And this is why he kept on harping on the fact that breakfast really is the most important meal of the day, because now all of your organs are waking up and they actually need a variety of nutrients to help them to get working, to start doing what they're supposed to do. But it's not just breakfast. You need balanced nutrition as part of a healthy, active lifestyle for 24 hours during the day to make sure that your body is functioning the way it should. Next slide, please, Via. Okay, so something that he focused on then is feeding and fasting, how your sleep and awake cycles affect how your body works. So when you're sleeping, you're obviously not eating, or you shouldn't be eating, hopefully. But that's when your body begins to get that metabolic adaptation to starvation, because now you're actually technically putting your body into starvation, because now the body needs to focus on other things. But what starts to happen is, because your body needs those amino acids that we get from protein, because you're not eating while you're sleeping, the body starts breaking down muscle, and it takes the amino acids from the muscle to give your body the fuel, the glucose that it needs to keep your brain functioning. Because your brain needs to keep working while you're sleeping, because it needs to tell the organs what to do and to do the repairs in your cells, etc. So while you're awake and eating, all of your genes and hormones and signals for digestion, activity, and alertness are working. But those hundreds of biological clocks that you have need to be synchronized to the day and night cycle every day. So when these clocks are thrown off, and this is studies that they did, when you throw off these clocks with tests that they did in animals, the same thing happens with humans as well. The result is that people become overweight or obese. The body can be fooled also by changing these clock genes, by changing the day and nighttime cycles, and the same can happen in people. So if there's too much light at night, so for those of you, I think we're all guilty of that at some point. We sit either in front of our PCs, or we're sitting in front of the television, or we've got our smartphones, and that bright light is signaling your brain that, hey, it's still daytime. Meanwhile, you're already lying in bed and you're actually about to go to sleep. So you actually start messing with your body clock if you do that, because now the body is holding back on the hormones that it needs to secrete to actually let you sleep. So the main message is that you need to keep your nutrition and exercise in line with your day and night cycle, whether you live, wherever you live, and you need to pay attention to it even when you're traveling through different time zones, if you're someone who travels a lot overseas. So you'll see there's an interesting little graph or little picture that I put in there in the bottom left-hand corner, and it just gives you an indication of how your body works. So towards the afternoons is when your coordination is best, and you have the greatest cardiovascular and muscle strength, but you also have your highest blood pressure and your highest body temperature. But then towards the evening, your body starts secreting melatonin, which is meant to help you to sleep. And this is also for those ladies who unfortunately struggle with menopause, when the menopausal hot flushes are at their worst. And then after midnight, around 1 and 2 in the morning, more closer towards 2 a.m., that's when you hit your deepest sleep. You also reach your lowest body temperature, your lowest blood pressure, And then after 6 in the morning, around 7 o'clock, your body stops secreting melatonin. You have your highest testosterone secretion because now the body needs to get active and get working. And it's also your time, this was very interesting, your highest risk of myocardial infarction, which is heart attack. So interesting if you understand how the body reacts to those different hormones and cycles. Next slide, please, Bea. Okay, so coming to sleep. There's a direct correlation between lack of sleep or not getting sufficient sleep and obesity. So your brain regenerates its energy when you sleep at night. And as I said in that previous graph, around 2 a.m. in the morning is when you hit your deepest sleep, which is called your REM, your rapid eye movement. If you don't get this type of sleep, this really deep level of sleep, your 24-hour cycle is disrupted. Your body doesn't focus on doing the repairs that it should. And then all the other problems related to poor sleep start creeping in. And those are things like an increase in appetite. I'm sure you've noticed already that if you haven't had a good night's rest, you're hungry all the time, you're craving things all the time, you're tired, and there's an increased risk as a result for obesity and becoming overweight. It also leads to increased levels of the stress hormone called cortisol. And it also increases in insulin and ghrelin hormones, which then increase your appetite. So it all has this really horrible knock-on effect where the secretion of the one hormone leads to secretion of a whole host of other bad hormones that just perpetuate bad eating habits, and the cycle just continues. This also can lead to increased eating because you're trying to get energy all the time because you're fatigued all the time. So there are a couple of reasons for poor sleep. Things like stress, and this is why stress management becomes important. If you are a very busy person, you're working, you have family, you have kids, you need to find ways to alleviate your stress levels. Late night eating is a big, big, big problem because Dr. David Heber made it clear that you should not be eating after 7 o'clock in the evening. You need to give your body time to know that digestion is finished, eating is done, and it's now getting in towards sleep mode where it needs to secrete the melatonin so you can have a good night's rest. And also too much computer work or watching TV. So if you look at the bottom left, there's what he called preparation for sleep. So you should have a balanced dinner that's healthy and contains high protein, but also a nutrient called tryptophan. So he says it's something that you can add to your foods, and Herbalife is actually thinking about these things and the importance of having the right nutrition for at night before you go to bed. So they have actually developed a dinner shake. It's not available in South Africa yet. Russia is the first market where they're testing it, but it's already being put out in the market, and the response to it apparently has been really good. So Herbalife is an innovative company. They're always looking at ways in how they can help people and support them in getting the best possible results, even when it comes to sleep. So he said you need to stop eating 2 hours before bed, stop the computer, phone, and television 1 hour before bed. And he says turn the lights down low, perhaps sit and read a book, and just relax before you need to go to sleep. And again, he reiterated that leading a balanced nutrition and healthy active lifestyle with keeping a daily routine of doing these things at more or less the same times each day gives your body a schedule. It gives it a routine, and it functions better if you do that. Next slide, please, Bea. Alrighty. Microbiome. Fancy word for what happens in your digestive tract. So the microbiome and what you do over the 24 hours in a day interact to keep your gastrointestinal tract in its normal rhythm, so that how your body digests foods and the times it digests foods and eliminates the waste are predictable certain times of the day. So when people ask, are you regular? That's technically what it's referring to. But there are trillions of bacteria that you have in your gut, and they digest the different substances from your food, and they make it into the large intestine without being absorbed. And these are called the prebiotics. And these things are like fiber, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and your phytonutrients. So this is why it's so important to eat a variety of different foods in your diet. And throughout the day, these nutrients stimulate the different species of bacteria, and the different groups of bacteria that you have in your digestive tract. You can see in the little graph, there in the little image that I've attached, where you can see the different colors, the changing colors of red and blue. that shows the different species and how they change during the day. So you don't have the same group of bacteria doing the same work. It's different groups of bacteria working at different times of day, because if your body is in this rhythm where it knows what it needs at what times, it will use the different bacteria to break down the food and extract those nutrients that it needs for that specific task that it now needs to focus on. So the signals to the brain from the gut include things like nutrients, hormones, bile acids, and the other substances made by these bacteria, like short-chain fatty acids. But if you aren't keeping things regular with your eating patterns, and you, for instance, start binging late at night, or you have irregular meal times, and the odd occasion when it does happen, it doesn't make such a big difference, but as much as possible, you want to try and keep more or less the same times and the same types of meals that you're having. It can lead to gas production, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and constipation. And the scary thing is that these conditions are very common, and it affects around 40% of Americans, and I'm sure it would be the same with South Africans as well. And they're often associated with poor eating habits, and over the long term, it leads to things like being overweight and being obese. So here's something critical. You know, if you're talking to a brand new client and they say that they struggle with these things, ask them, what is the eating schedule like? What are the eating patterns? Are they eating at the same times every day? Are they eating similar meals, or does it just happen on the fly? Because they're already, you can, before you even talk about what they're eating, you can already just get them into a better rhythm and pattern. Next slide, please, Via. Okay, so looking at sleep, melatonin, your body manufactures from tryptophan in the brain, and this is where the master clock sits. That's the one that regulates how all the other clocks in your body works. And this is the one that responds to light and dark. So at night, when you should be in darkness and sleeping, your melatonin actually increases, it shoots up, and it acts as a hormone signal to tell all the other biological clocks in your different organs, such as the kidneys and the liver, that they need to now do certain functions. As morning comes and the melatonin drops, light comes in. Remember the eye thing I explained? That's when cortisol from your adrenal glands actually increases. So melatonin drops when you wake up or start waking up, cortisol increases, and the reverse happens later in the day when it starts heading towards evening. And the cortisol goes up because it increases your energy and it gives you the ability to perform certain activities. But in the late afternoon, around 4 or 5 o'clock, that's when the cortisol decreases and you start to feel tired. And this is the perfect time for a protein-rich shake or a snack to increase your mental and physical energy. So that 5 p.m. shake we're always talking about, that Leon Weisbein promoted some time back already, it's really important because this helps to just pick up your energy levels again. It gives the body that pick-me-up with the right nutrients, and it also helps you that you don't overeat later on at dinner. And after dinner at about 7 p.m., the cortisol stays low, and the melatonin made from tryptophan in your meals start to go up. And this makes you tired and actually gets you ready for sleep. Unless you're sitting parked in front of a bright screen all the time, which will actually delay that process. Also, as people get older, the amount of melatonin that is released during sleep starts to go down, and older people typically sleep less well and they sleep fewer hours. So they may need more melatonin as a supplement, or they need to have it made from tryptophan that they actually add to their foods. But with Herbalife, we've got that sorted. Next slide, please, Via. Right. So how do you get into rhythm? It's important that you have your meals at set times every day, along with a regular exercise routine. Exercise is so, so important. You need to start with a protein-rich breakfast every day. That is the most important meal of the day. And as we all know, it actually sets you up for how you are functioning the rest of the day. You may want a mid-morning protein snack after you exercise, and then follow that with a lunch that contains protein. At 4 or 5 p.m., you want to have that protein snack, or even better, your 5 p.m. shake. Because you're now tired and your cortisol levels are low, so you want to make sure that you counter the effect of that. Then have your dinner at around 7 p.m. Make sure there's sufficient protein. And if you want, take a gentle walk after dinner, or rest and relax for 3 hours before you go to sleep. Don't keep your brain buzzing all the time. And if you find that you're craving high-fat, high-sugar snack foods after dinner, rather have a 10-gram protein snack instead. So he says it can be a bit of a hit and a miss in the beginning, so it's important that you understand it might take a few days before you actually get into a proper rhythm for yourself. And he even equated it to being like adjusting an old-fashioned wind-up watch. So don't give up after day one, just be patient. But he said, as much as we focus on protein, all the other macronutrients and other nutrients that your body needs, like fiber, is critical. You need that minimum of 25 grams of fiber per day. You need to ensure that you're staying properly hydrated, because that also leads to fatigue. And you need to make sure that you're getting your healthy fats in, especially your omega-3 fatty acids. And then he also focused on skin, saying that remember that your skin also needs healthy, balanced nutrition. We can't just treat skin or look after skin from the outside. Everything you eat does show up in your skin. So that little graph there on the right-hand side just again confirms the cycles that your body goes through, where your deepest sleep is, where you're most alert, when fatigue kicks in the afternoon, and then towards bedtime, how melatonin increases. Next slide, please, Via. Okay, so then he focused over the weekend on the importance of protein and the role that it plays, and why we focus so much on body composition and not so much on what the number on the scale is. And the reason is muscle burns 30 calories per kilogram of body weight, where fat burns 6 calories per kilogram of body weight. So who wouldn't want more lean muscle? You're burning more calories just by sitting there if you have more lean muscle. So the protein in your diet and muscle building exercises affect your body fat, and that determines how much calories you burn. So your lean muscle in your body, or your fat-free mass, is something that we can obviously measure with our Tanita scales, and that will determine how many calories you can burn at rest. If you don't get the right amount of protein, which is around 1 gram per pound, or although we work with kilograms in South Africa, that's around 2 grams per kilogram, give or take, of lean body mass, and you need to spread it across your meals throughout the day. If you're not doing that, your lean body mass will go down. If you lead a sedentary lifestyle, that also causes your muscle to shrink and decrease in size, and this increases the risk of joint and back pain. And this can happen at any age, but typically it happens to people between ages of 30 and 50. And this is the scary part. You lose in that age group around 25 to 30% of your lean muscle. There goes your fat burning engine. So when the number of calories that your body is burning at rest starts to go down, you can gain weight as body fat, because even though you're eating the same amount of calories you've always eaten, your body is actually burning less. And because it's burning less, that excess of energy that you took in, that you consumed, your body can only store that as fat. So it's important that you have protein-rich shakes for breakfast, and that when you're exercising, within 30 minutes to 1 hour after you exercise, you need to make sure that you're getting good lean protein in. And this is where a shake really serves you well again. So looking at that whole concept of leading a healthy, active lifestyle is critical to help you to maintain that lean muscle, even build lean muscle, increase your metabolic rate, which in turn drops your body fat and helps you to keep the shape you want, no matter how old you are. And this is the great thing, because we know these things and because we understand that this is how the body works, we can do what is necessary to prevent this actually from happening for ourselves and also for our clients. Next slide, please, Via. Okay, so he said we need to not just focus on BMI, because BMI gives you only a part of the puzzle. It might be an indicator of a person being unhealthy, but as this little slide here with the MRI images show you, that all of these pictures are guys that have the same waist circumference. So which means if you calculate their BMI, they should have the same BMI. However, if you look at all the white areas, everywhere you see white is actually fat. You have the subcutaneous fat, which is the fat on the outside that's under the skin. But if you look internally, in the middle, the white pieces you're seeing there, that's actually the visceral fat. And if you look at the first picture and the last picture, it jumps from 0.5 liters to 4.3 liters of visceral fat. But both those guys have exactly the same waist circumference. So this is why what we do, and when we do assessments for clients, that information becomes so important, because it's rather focusing on body composition, what that body weight is made up of, instead of focusing just on a waist measurement or a BMI measurement. Next slide, please, Bia. So even if you think you are thin, you can be fat. The MRIs that you can see there on the left-hand side, It can reveal fat that's sitting around the heart, the liver, the intestines, and even the brain. And these people have normal waist circumferences. There was a study that was done, and of the women that they scanned, as many as 45% of those that had a normal BMI actually had excessive levels of internal fat, the visceral fat. And among the men, the percentage was even higher. It was around 60%. So even when body weight is regarded as being normal or just slightly overweight, not necessarily severely obese, the visceral fat could be too high and put the person at risk for certain diseases, which is what we don't want. So this is why what we do is really important. Next slide, please, Via. So protein is one of the major nutrients that your body requires, and it needs it in adequate amounts each day. If not, the body won't be able to grow, it won't be able to repair everyday wear and tear on muscle tissue. The body can begin to break down body tissues so that it can get the amino acids that's needed to maintain body function. And protein also helps you to control your hunger for longer than what fat and carbohydrates do. So again, body composition really is more important than body weights. If you look at the two little pictures of the two guys there, a little bit of a difference in height, but the guy on the right weighs a lot more. He weighs 45 pounds more than the guy on the left. And they both have the same BMI, but what is significant is that the shape of their bodies is different. The one looks healthy and the other one doesn't. And the graph on the right shows you that your REE, which is your resting energy expenditure, there's a direct correlation between that and the amount of fat-free mass or lean muscle that you have in your body. The more you have lean muscle, you can look at the graph, the higher the amount of calories that your body is burning per day. So this is awesome. If you get your nutrition right, you're adding in a bit of exercise, and you start building lean muscle, your metabolic rate will actually increase, which technically means you can eat a lot more. Who wouldn't want to do that? Because you don't have to focus so much on how much you're eating, because you have a lot more calories that you can fit into your day and still maintain your weight or still be on a weight loss program. What is interesting that happened to me, my BMR used to sit around 1,700 calories. Since getting a lot more focused with how I'm eating and the exercise that I'm doing, it's actually gone up to 2,300 calories. That's my BMR. So I can almost eat the same amount of food now that I was burning at rest before and still be losing weight. So it's actually really good if you start getting that balance right. Next slide, please, Bia. So here's a little bit of a science lesson in terms of how it works. So your body can't manufacture amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of every single cell in your body. Amino acids are found in protein. So you need to eat protein so the body can get the amino acids. If the body doesn't get it, it takes it out of your lean muscle. So the only time your muscle will actually absorb amino acids is if the amount of amino acids in your bloodstream is higher than the amount of amino acids you actually have in the muscle. But what will happen is if you have a too long gap in between your meals and the body needs that consistent supply of amino acids, the body will say, oops, okay, the amino acid level in the blood is actually lower than what it is inside the muscle. Let's rip it out of the muscle again because now we need it because there's work that we need to do with it. So we want to focus on hypertrophy. In other words, we want to make sure that we're getting enough amino acids in so that the muscle grows. That you increase lean muscle and that your muscle doesn't break down. So that's important to understand as well, and why it is that we need to eat the right amount of protein. Next slide, please, Via. So this was another study that showed that an increase in protein leads to an increase in lean body mass and also an increase in your resting metabolic rate. So there's that little graph again showing in clear detail, the more lean muscle you have, the more energy your body burns. Next slide, please, Via. Okay, so here's what I was explaining regarding the times when you eat protein. So if you're doing resistance exercise and you have a meal that's rich in protein, your amino acid levels actually increase and the body uses that to repair and rebuild that muscle. And in between, before you have your next meal, you have what we call fasted losses. So that's when the body starts taking a little bit of the amino acids out of your muscle to do what it needs to do elsewhere in the body. But you want to make sure, and you can see those differences in the peaks and the valleys, is that the peaks are higher than the valleys. So you never want to lose more than what you're actually putting in. So you will lose a little bit in between your meals, but not too much that it will actually drop your lean muscle. So that's how the body cycles throughout the day in terms of how it uses the protein to build lean muscle. And something that he noted that's also very important is that you must make sure that your amount of protein that you're having per day, that you're balancing it properly throughout the day. So the graph on the right there, you don't want to have 10 grams of protein for breakfast, 20 grams for lunch, and then 60 grams for dinner. And if you think about clients that you've spoken to already, this is typically what they do, if they're even having breakfast. So oftentimes they even start on 0 for protein for breakfast, and it just goes up, and then they have the 500-gram piece of steak for dinner at night. And that's not what you want. You want to make sure that it's balanced throughout the day. You want to be aiming for around 25 to 30 grams of protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then your snacks in between. And depending on what your specific protein need is, it might be that you need to increase it a little bit or drop it a little bit down. Next slide, please, Bia. All right, so you've got different types of protein, and this is where Herbalife is really awesome as well. Their products contain a variety of proteins because each one of the types of proteins that you get, the body works with differently. So there's a cute little graph that shows you whey protein, soy protein, casein protein, and if you blend those proteins. So you'll have a high amino acid availability right at the start, especially with whey and when you blend them. And then with some of them, it tapers pretty quickly. And this is another reason why Herbalife likes combining different types of protein. Because with some, you need an immediate release of energy, of protein, so you can get the amino acid straight away. And with some of the other proteins, it actually helps to sustain you for that second and third hour until you have your next meal to still give you that amino acid supply that your body needs. So this is where Herbalife is super clever in combining the different types of protein. Next slide, please, Bia. Okay, so aging and muscle loss, it's a real thing. So as you age, as I mentioned earlier on, you start to lose lean muscle without you even doing anything. And there's also a loss of muscle strength at the same time because the nerves to the muscles decrease in number with aging. So this is why it's even more important that we look well after ourselves when we're in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s so that we can offset this muscle loss that happens. Next slide, please, Bia. Okay, so the loss of lean body mass in typical inactive men over a period of 10 years. So the 40-year-old man on the left has a lean body mass of 160 pounds, and he has 20% body fat. But that same man, if he doesn't do any resistance training, by age 50, he may be down to 145 pounds of lean body mass. So he would have lost 15 pounds of lean body mass. And although he's the same weight, he'll actually be heavier because his metabolism has slowed down and he's actually started to store more fat. So that's where the extra weight comes from. And this is why people's body shape changes as they get older if they don't focus on staying active and eating the right amount of foods. So interesting to note. Next slide. All right. So what your body really needs is core nutrition. You need your macronutrients that you would get from things like your Formula 1, your Herbalife 24, Formula 1 Sport, 24 Rebuild Strength, protein bars, protein powder, PDM, your snacks, the snacks that we've got available, and soup. Then your micronutrients, those are things like your vitamins, your minerals that you'll get from products like Cell Activator and RoseGuard, healthy fats from Herbalife line, fiber from our fiber supplements as well as our multi-fiber drink, and then phytonutrients you'll get from your aloe and from your tea. And most of those things almost act like a prebiotic as well, and it's really great for your digestive health. Next slide, please, Via. All right. So our bodies are automatically adapted to store fat. So we need to make sure that we balance our meals properly. So the amount of protein and fat that you eat, you need to eat an amount and quality that is relative to your lean body mass when it comes to protein and relative to your fat mass when you're taking in fats. And this is why we say you need around 30% protein and around 30% fat. The commonalities between those two is that both of them are essential for good health, despite what a lot of people think that they need to cut out fats. You need to cut out the bad fats. You need the healthy fats, the omega-3s. But both of these are missing from modern diets, and both are stored in the body long term. So it's important that you eat them because the body needs them. Then when it comes to carbohydrates, there's this whole thing about cutting out carbs as well, which he said is the worst idea ever. You need to, again, focus on eating the right types of carbs. Don't cut out your complex carbohydrates. Focus on cutting out your simple sugars or your refined carbs, because those are the ones that if your body gets that in excess, it actually converts it and stores it as fat. Carbohydrates is your body's immediate fuel source. That gets stored in your muscle, but it can only store around 300 grams in your muscle. And when that starts burning off, you need to be sure that you're replenishing that. That's why you need to have complex carbs with each one of your meals as well. Next slide, please, Bia. All right, so there's a lot of benefit in resistance exercise. A lot of people don't want to work with weights or do resistance training because they think it's going to make them grow big muscle. Not true. You need to do completely different training and eat like a horse to be able to build muscle like that and become a bodybuilder. But resistance training actually helps your metabolic rate. It helps to increase your metabolic rate. Even post-exercise, your metabolism is still working much harder than what it would when you're doing cardio training. So it promotes the increase in lean body mass, and it promotes increasing your resting metabolism. And that in the end leads to a loss of an excess of abdominal fat. And that's what we want. And also, the more lean muscle you have, it improves muscle function and your body posture. A lot of things, there's a lot of good benefits that come out of adding in resistance training as part of your exercise program. Next slide, please, Bia. All right, so here's an interesting little graph where people think they can out-train their forks. Energy expenditure with physical activity. If you want to be burning around 200 calories per day, chewing gum will only help you burn around 11 calories per hour. You'll need to walk 2 miles per hour. It increases a little bit with cycling, gardening, climbing stairs, running, and running 10 miles per hour, which is quite fast if you want to have a higher calorie burn. So you'll have to exercise like crazy to be able to burn off calories that you have. And he gave an interesting example with if you want to get a 300 calorie negative energy balance, in other words, if you want to reduce your calorie intake by 300 calories, you can just choose to cut out the packet of potato crisps, or you're going to have to run 3 miles in 30 minutes. Or it could be as simple as cutting out 2 diet sodas for 2 regular sodas, or alternatively having to cycle 8 miles in 30 minutes. So the message he was trying to bring across is that you don't have to exercise like an insane person to keep a good body shape. Just learn to eat the right foods, help your body to build lean muscle, burn the fat, have a higher metabolic rate, bring in a little bit of physical activity because it's good for you, and it also helps to promote the growth of and development of lean muscle. And then you don't have to be this crazy person that has to do all these silly things to try and burn off the excess calories. Right, and then he finished off with something which I thought was really cool. He said you need to be an agent of change in your community. And there are certain behavior strategies and social support that we can put in place to really make a difference. We need to raise awareness through food, activity, and weight records, which is what we are already doing as coaches. We need to confront the challenges to following a healthy lifestyle. And I think the more you educate yourself about how you can help your clients, the better equipped you will be to do that. We need to manage emotional eating, stress, tension, and anxiety. And we can enlist the social support and the power of a group. And those of you who run things like 21-day challenges and 6-day breakfast challenges, I'm sure that you know from that already, having that kind of group support makes a massive difference to people, and the chances of them succeeding is already much higher. So our job is to create awareness. We persuade, motivate, educate, coach, and support our clients. We also had an awesome new product launched. I'm sure everyone is already aware of that, the Cappuccino Shake. Caffeine is regarded as a phytonutrient. It helps to increase attention, mood, energy, and ability to think. And before some of your clients freak out and say, oh, there's caffeine in there, it's not good. Each shake, when you mix it, the 2 scoops, is approximately half to 1/3 of the caffeine you would find in a normal cup of coffee. So it's even less than what you'd have in a regular cup of coffee. So if they can drink coffee, they will be fine with the Herbalife Shake. And then lastly, for those of you who don't know this yet, this really young and hip doctor of ours, Dr. David Heber. He's actually on Instagram. I've been following him for quite some time. He posts daily educational videos, and Instagram is awesome because a video can't be longer than 1 minute. So it doesn't take up tons of your time. I really suggest that if you're not on Instagram, and even if you're not a social media person, get onto Instagram just so that you can follow him and look at his daily posts. There's a wealth of information in there. He's got awesome videos on different types of exercises that you can do to grow different muscle in your body. Those of you who have clients that want to get a specific body shape, he's got brilliant advice there. And it's not just the video clips, there's always a bit of text alongside with it as well, where he takes you through the explanation. So a really, really brilliant tool. And then he also has a website where he also updates a lot of these videos. It runs behind a little bit. His last post there was only in September, where Instagram has all the current things. But you can go check it out, drdavidheber.com. So that's pretty much it from my side. I hope you guys got some value out of this. It's quite a bit of information that I shuttled through tonight. But hopefully you guys found it interesting, and it's something that you feel you can add to your toolbox when you're working with your clients. Thanks, Pia.
Liesl, this was absolutely fantastic. Bravo. We don't make questions now because it would take too long, but I just encourage you. The video is recorded, or the call is recorded, and we will have it on our level 10 page. Watch it again, take good notes if you haven't taken notes now already. And if you have questions, just come back on the team chat so that Liesl can answer you. For me personally, what I got now again, when I listened to it again, I heard him live already a couple of times, it just emphasizes all the time to me why we do what we do, and what we have with Herbalife makes the life so easy. And I think a lot of the things you mentioned tonight, Liesl, when you feel as a brand new member right now overwhelmed with all the information, I just can say, first of all, apply it to your own life. And then with your own experience, you can basically help your members and your customers to understand it more and more. Liesl, big thank you. This was absolutely fantastic. It was a lot of information we got at the extravaganza. It was actually covered now what we had over 3 days. Liesl packed together in 45 minutes. So I rather encourage everybody, when we have a live training, go to the live training. But this was brilliant work, Liesl, putting it together. Everybody's unmuted, so give it up to Liesl and give her a big applause. Thank you, Liesl. Brilliant.